They are capital letters, which is kind of obvious. I don't remember. I tried to do some research on when they started being used, and I couldn't find anything. I know that they were around at least as early as the 1200s. They may have gone farther back than that. Characteristically, they pull from both uncial letter forms, you know, the sort of rounded shape, as well as Roman letter forms, which are a bit more blocky and vertical. Numerous letters of the alphabet have more than one form. And if you look at some carvings, my class handout has links to a few pictures of carvings from the Chartres Cathedral, and those date to the 1200s. And some of the words have two different letter forms within the same word. So we're going to explore letter forms a little bit, and then we're going to go into my preferred method for drawing and painting these. And then we'll entertain as many questions as we want. I will say, as long as you don't have any background noise, if you don't have any TV in the background or anything like that, go ahead and unmute your cameras, your microphones. I like not talking to an empty room. I like being able to hear people, and if you have any questions, feel free to pop in at any point. I don't mind the interruption at all. I need a pencil, which has disappeared on me. There's my pencil. All right. So the big thing that we talked about, we've already talked about how they're sort of a combination of Roman letter forms and uncial letter forms. Another big characteristic of them was a high exaggeration between thick strokes and thin strokes. To give you an idea, okay, so I'm left-handed and I write upside down, so if this looks weird, it's not your camera, I promise. A capital A, ordinary capital A, might be about like that, right? This is a sideways A. A Lombardic capital A might be more like that. And they may or may not even put the crossbar in there because this is a wonderful opportunity to paint something decorative. Can everybody see that okay? Is it all right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Great, great, great. And that's one Lombardic A. This is another one. If you thicken it out a little bit, exaggerate it somewhat, that's a perfectly reasonable Lombardic A. I have seen more of the uncial style, so it comes down and up and is really exaggerated out here. I don't see that one as often. I tend to see this a lot. And if you're doing a capital letter for a scroll or for a block of text, you can take this and extend it out into your border, and you can put leaves on it, and you can do squiggly pen work, and you can do all kinds of fun things. It's a great excuse to decorate. I love Lombardic capitals because you can exaggerate them so very much. Referring back, yes, a really good guideline when you're getting ready to put these in your text is to leave yourself a square space or at least a really broad rectangle. I prefer squares or close to squares. So if you know that your text is going to start with, let's say it's an award scroll, let all know something, something, something. You leave yourself a square for your L. That's not quite square, but it's close enough. And then you fill your text in past it, and you write actually you start up here. Start up at the top of the letter, and you finish your award text, and you wrap around and go under it. And now you've got a space here that you can come back to later and put your L for let in, or proclaim to all. You can make a nice big letter P in there. Those are always fun. But give yourself a square space, and you don't have to worry about the letter being a certain shape. You don't have to worry about, is my P shape going to be okay? Where does my text go? Nah, it's a square. Just draw a square and then write around the square, and you're good to go. The one exception for that is the narrow form of the letter I. And I say narrow form because there is a wide form. A wide form is just a great big capital I. I mean, it's, you know, big and exaggerated. The narrow form here, something more like that. If that looks suspiciously like a J to you, remember that in Latin, I and J were the same letter. They were pronounced very similarly. You know, judicare for to judge was spelled I-U-D, you know. So it goes. But if you give yourself, for the most part, a square space to begin, even if your letter is round, you don't have to worry about it taking up the correct amount of space. A letter O, let's give ourselves another square here. Letter O is going to come all the way out. Hey, Breezy, are you still in here?
I absolutely am.
Okay, I have somebody messaging that my hand is not pinned for them, that every time I speak, it jumps back to my face.
It's pinned on my set.
Okay.
But now you can override, like, you can override what you actually see on your own computer. That's what I'm doing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Let's move my camera a little bit.
I found that if you click on the picture you want to see, and then up in the top corner of it is a little square, and you can type pin it.
Yes.
That's the one that'll pin to your, that'll pin big.
Yeah, I know that myself as a host, I can pin a video. I wasn't sure if you as viewers could pin it, but if you can.
As long as they don't set it up that we can't. And I just pinned it, so it should work.
Awesome. All right, so like I said, I write upside down. Give yourself a square, fill it, and then put an ellipse in the middle, and you get this really exaggerated. Look how thin this is. This is a single line compared to how thick it is out here. That exaggeration is a lot of fun to play with. You can do all kinds of fun things with that. I recently, okay, within the past couple of years, I'm just really proud of this one letter D that I did. And the letter D, put my ellipse right here, came out, that's too far, came out like that. But this whole thing here was a very thin blue vine. And it came out, and then they put leaves on it at the end, and it went up and everything else. But then, and this here was thin. But then those were blue vines. And this here was red.
And the sites are all around us, like free installation on all window siding and doors, and no interest for one.
If somebody has a TV or something on their background,
Oh, I do, sorry.
Free installation, all from the comfort of home.
I forgot I didn't back unmute.
I understand. I don't mind having everybody unmuted so that I can hear your questions and everything. But then if there's any sort of background noise, that can become problematic. But we're not going to worry about that. We're moving on. So like I said, big square, exaggerated, thin and thick, and lots of fun and room to play for decoration and whatnot. I'm gonna move on to the very next thing in my handout. Like I said, this is probably gonna be a little bit of a short class. I've not really taught it in this format before, and I hope that I have enough material. I hope you're all satisfied. I'm just gonna go to making letters. Oh, I wanted to talk about putting round letters inside these square spaces. Let's come up. Move my laptop. There's some more room to play. There's a square here. The letter S is one that gives people trouble. The letter S is easier than you think if you cheat. And I'm a big fan of cheating to make things easier, so let's do that. The first thing you're going to draw is your nice exaggerated circle. It can even be an oval. I mean, go nuts. The next thing you're going to put in here is a line like that, and a line like that. You are almost done. The next thing you do is a serif up here and a serif down there. That is your letter S. You are set. And it still takes up a square space. You still have thingies that you can exaggerate and stretch off of it for pen work or vine work or painting or whatever you want to do. But you just made one of the more complicated letters in the alphabet really, really easy, which makes me happy. M. M is another round letter that you often see. So we'll put another square here. My M's sometimes wind up a little asymmetrical, but that's probably because I get in a hurry. We'll make another circle here. Our center stroke. That's most of the M already. And then come down, exaggerate that all the way out of your square. Come down, exaggerate that all the way out of your square. And then you finish it right across there. I realize I'm getting into other letters and it might be hard to see. I hope that you'll be able to see this on a large screen. And I hope that you'll be able to see it on the video. It looks like it's visible. I hope that it's visible for all of you. But there is your letter M.
Really visible for me, just to let you know.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah,
So we're going to move.
and up close, it looks fine to me, but everybody can alter whatever they see. They get the same raw feed that we all get, and you can fix it however you want for your home viewing. You know, I can't dictate that.
Okay. I'm gonna go on to the next stage here.
Before you jump on to the next one, can you fill in the S like you just did with the M so that I can make sure I'm seeing it correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got your thick right there. Your thin is the circle that you made. And you sort of bring this up to make a triangular serif at the top. Like that. And even though this is super thin, you know, you can paint that, you can gild this, you can do whatever you want. You have space to decorate, so you can put like a little vine in here if you wanted. You could, I have seen things like you have a person standing in here and they just sort of hide behind this like it's a fence or something. And so you've got a person standing in here and here's their head, right? There are a bazillion different options for Lombardic capitals. They go big, they go small. You can carve them into stone, you can paint them on paper. For this class, we're gonna go with a 2-color thing, gold, and then one other color. But I have seen green and purple. I have seen letters that were red and blue, like puzzle initials. This is not a puzzle initials class. Puzzle initials are a blast and a half, but I've never actually done one. So I'm gonna leave that out of this class. What else? You can make them 1 line high in your text and sprinkle them all through the body of your scroll. You can make them giganimous. The Luttrell Psalter, the very first page of the Luttrell Psalter starts with a letter B that is like 5 or 6 lines high. It is massive. It's like, here's their B. And then their text starts up here. And here are their lines of text, and they just go and go and go and go and go. And then when they get to the end of this line here, they wrap around and keep going. Let me see. Why did this turn sideways? Stop it. There we go. Let's go ahead and paint a letter. Is everybody ready for something fun like that? Do we have any more questions that we need before we proceed? Sounds like not. I'm gonna get this out of the way. I like working on these. These are artist trading cards. They're a wonderful, non-intimidating way to practice whatever you want to work on. And if you're satisfied with it when you're done, you can give it away to a friend of yours and trade for another piece of art. And if you don't like it, you're not wasting a ton of paper. You can pitch it, you can keep it for your portfolio, you can do whatever you want to do. I feel like doing, oh, let's do a letter D. I like the letter D. I'm gonna make my square. That's an asymmetrical square, so I'm gonna turn it around. Now, I showed you one letter, sort of the Roman letter, D right here. Just your regular, it looks like a letter D. There's a second form for this letter. Remember, I mentioned that a lot of Lombardic capitals have more than one form. The Unsealed form is, again, a circle with a piece that comes out. Comes out like this. And you can put little beads on the end, or you can exaggerate it out and turn it into a vine, or whatever you want to do. I feel like doing that Unsealed form tonight just for grins and giggles. So I'm going to draw my circle in here. Now, not every manuscript does this, but it's something that I really like when I look at my letters. You notice how I'm touching my square here? Go all the way out to the edge and even go past it a little bit when you draw these. I have seen great big squares with little timid, scared letters on the inside sort of floating in space like they're not really sure what they're doing. If your letter looks timid, I'm not sure that you really did it right. Now, like I said, there are manuscripts where they don't come all the way out and touch their square, but this is a personal preference of mine. And the big, bold letters in my personal view look nicer. So when you draw your square, go ahead and fill it. Go all the way out. Have fun with it. And put your ellipse in there. And then we're going to come off of this. Like that. I'm probably going to go like this. Like this. If I wanted to, I could come up and put some leaves on this, or I could go out that way on a bigger piece of paper, like if I had a bigger border or whatever. But this is the D I'm going to work with. So now you have two choices you can make. The first choice is, are you going to gild the background or the letter? And the second choice is, what color are you going to do the other part? Because this class is keeping things simple, my palette consists of gold, red, blue, and white. Let's come over here. So I'm going to do gold, either a gold letter or a gold background. And then I'm going to do the other in either red or blue. And then I'm going to decorate the colored bit with white when I'm done. How many people have I got in here right now? I see, is it 9 people? Is that right? Or is that not? I can't tell.
I have 14 of participants that are watching in this, plus whatever's on the live stream on the page.
There are 14 people in here watching me make a fool of myself with Lombardic capitals. That is outstanding. So let's take a vote just for the heck of it. Do we want to do a gold background or do we want to do a gold letter? Because I really don't care either way.
If there were
Gold
color
letter.
in the center of the ellipse, then you'd be able to work it easier.
This is true. This is true. All right, I hear people saying gold letter, so let's do the gold letter. I'm using Caliro, also known as Fine Tech. These are about $6 a pan from John Muir Bookseller. They're a terrific fake gold. Now, if you were gilding, you could do this with gold leaf. You could do this with raised gold. You could do it with shell gold. It depends on your time period. It depends on your exemplar. There's nothing wrong with doing that either way. I'm just keeping it quick and dirty tonight, so we're using Fine Tech. So let's make our letter. We're just gonna fill this bad boy in. Oh, I'm abusing this paintbrush so badly. And it's a brand new paintbrush too. I am cruel and unusual, that's me. I actually taught a version of this class at my local art museum. And it was a 3-hour workshop because the first thing we did was work on a simple alphabet for calligraphy because we were making bookmarks with quotes on them. And what people would do is we would spend the first hour learning how to write the quote that they wanted to put on their bookmark. And the second hour actually writing the bookmark and getting the capital drawn in. And then the third hour, decorating and painting our capital. So when we were finished, we had a bookmark that we could take home that had a pretty, capital letter on it. So that's always nice. I've had a number of people in other classes that I teach. I do a lot of pencil marking before I get going, obviously. And I've had people, like in my Black Hours class, they asked what happened to the pencil lines. In my scroll layout class, they asked what happened to the pencil lines. In my canvas leaf class, they asked what happened to the pencil lines. I ignore them. I paint right over them. I fill this bad boy in. I need a little more water. There we go. Paint right on over it, and then I don't have to worry about it. This letter is gigantic. Now, depending on the text I was working, this could be possibly 6 lines of text that I would just always start at the top of your letter, and then just keep going, wrap your text around, and keep going. So that's the gold. We're going to take another vote. Actually, no, we're not. I like blue. Blue and gold look pretty together, so we're going to do that.
Red and gold look pretty together.
Red and gold do look pretty together. I just am in a mood for blue tonight. Now, the Morgan Black Hours is green and gold capitals. The border is blue and the capitals are gold and green. It's kind of weird, but it looks cool. Now for the tricky bits, we're going to do the easy bits first. There we go. These squares don't have to be perfect squares. You see I'm like making a straight line here? Let's not. Let's bring that out and exaggerate the corner a little bit. And come in. And we'll paint around the edge of our letter. We'll fill this bad boy in. Up here, this is going to be the tricky bit. Probably help if I wasn't wearing my glasses right now because everything's getting too blurry for me. Goes up. Nothing wrong with turning your letter. I know that there are scribes who tape their artwork down so that it's right side up, and then they continue on their merry way and do everything without moving the paper. I consider this to be witchcraft and sorcery, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. Because it's something that I can't do. I'm always turning my paper upside down, sideways, working at an angle, doing everything.
I tape my stuff down, but I usually tape it down to a small board that I can then turn around.
Aha, I see. More cheating. I approve.
I like cheating.
Although somebody did just mention in the text chat, it's not cheating if there's not an exam afterwards. And since there's not, I guess we're not cheating.
Somebody else asked, what calligraphy hands do you use with Lombardic capitals?
Not Unsealed. Unsealed is a little too early period, but Carolingian starts at about the 1000 to 1100s, and I have seen Lombardic with that. Pretty much anything post 1200, you're good to go. Gothic looks terrific with this. You get a nice picket fence text block, and then this great big round letter to set it off as a compliment, and it's a lot of fun. When you got to later period, you start getting the batards and the more rounded alphabets. They tended to just exaggerate their batard and make a giant sized batard letter for the capital, but not always. I do see some Lombardics in later period as well. As always, be guided by period examples where possible. If I were better at online research, I would do a class on how to research manuscripts for sources, because they're great. When you have that source to work off of, and you don't have to slavishly imitate it, but to be inspired by, you can get such wonderful, wonderful results from that. So I'm a big fan. My phone is my main camera for my artwork. And every once in a while, it decides that it's too sideways and it needs to rotate the camera, or it's not sideways enough and it needs to rotate the camera. I forgot to tell it not to rotate today. We are at 7:30. Do we have any other questions so far? Because watching this paint and literally watching paint dry is probably not the most interesting way to spend an A&S class. And I've demonstrated that I can talk and paint at the same time. Maybe not well, but I can.
I was kind of curious as to how many people came from like a drafting or architectural drawing background, because like in that style, you do tape everything down and square it up, and you're doing a lot more like orthographic projections or whatever. And I just, if you get used to that way, and that's why you tape stuff down.
Could be. I know that sometimes the material you're working with likes to buckle, and to try and prevent that, you'll tape it down. Pergaminata, sorry, perg for short. It's a paper. It's cellulite based, or sulfite, I forget what it is, but it's not animal skin, and it loves moisture. It will buckle so badly. It will cockle like mad. There are people who adore working with it because it's a good substitute for actual vellum. I'm rebellious. I kind of hate it. I'm going to show you a piece actually that has some Lombardic capitals on it. This is a page.
You're using Bristol plate or something like that?
Yeah, this is Bristol board, basically. This is perg. Bring it in here. I also use this to demonstrate my gilding class, but you see how badly curled that is? I didn't tape it down when I was working. But these are some nice Lombardic capitals. I drew squares and I filled them in to get that word. And I'm going to paint these red, blue backgrounds, and then I'm going to come back in and do white work on top of it. So this is going to look really nice, but Perg itself, I mean, doesn't like to lay flat. Ordinarily, I would prefer to work on vellum, which does also buckle, but once it dries out, it tends to unbuckle again, and Perg doesn't. So now we're ready for the white part for this class. Like I said, there are 1,000,001 options for Lombardic capitals and decorations in period. I'm just using white gouache because that's what I have right now. But John Neal Booksellers has a product called Doc Martens Bleed Proof White. Good God, this stuff is amazing. An awful lot of my classes end up sounding like product placement ads for John Neal and all of their products, but let's face it, they have really good products. If you paint with red especially, putting white over the top of it can be tricky. You can end up with pink without intending to. Something about bleed-proof white, and I don't know what mysterious ingredients they have in there, but they really mean it when they say bleed-proof. You can put the white down on red and it stays white. An alternative to that, if you feel like living dangerously, is to use period pigments and break out the lead white. Lead white is fantastically toxic, but it's also fantastically opaque. There's a reason it was such a popular paint for so long. We only stopped using lead-based paints in what, the 70s? So for hundreds of years, lead-based paints were our go-to because they're opaque. They're just, you know, also deadly. This is not a white work class. This is meant to be a class on Lombardic capitals, like I said, so I'm just going to keep this real simple.
I had to step away a couple of times. What would you say makes a Lombardic capital a Lombardic capital?
Oh boy, you're asking the hard questions. I believe they got a start in a specific region, like Lombardy, Italy, I think it was. And they sort of spread from there. But when I was researching for this class, I was trying to find out where and when they originated, and I couldn't actually find as much as I wanted to. So if you find out where they came from, by all means, share that with the class. Drop me an email. My email address is right at the top of the class handout. Like I said, I'm just keeping this simple.
Your class is about capitals, but I've also seen phrases or entire sides of a page in alternating red and blue lines, or every letter, which is gold, is on an alternating box of red or blue.
Yep.
There seems to be so many different ways to use it, because sometimes none of these letters are anything other than just letters done standard script, this sort of script in shell gold, on alternating blocks of red and blue.
Oh yeah. I have in the handout at the very bottom, I have my steps for how to do this. But then at the bottom, I have different options and things that you can try. And that's absolutely one of them. I was researching through manuscripts for a specific scroll I was working on. And what was interesting, this particular book was actually 3 separate texts by 3 separate authors. And the majority of it was done in one style. And then when that text ended and the next text and next author began, he was using green and purple for his capitals instead of red and blue. And it was just so intriguing to me. I've also seen, let's make this a monster. This would be an animal head, and this would be the neck, and this would be the body, and you might have like legs and paws and things in here, and then the tail would come up and around and curl. So you can, I mean, you can have a lot of fun with these as long as you get the basic shape right. The main thing for me is the exaggeration between thick and thin, because it makes such an artistic statement. It just looks really, really cool. Is my blue dry? My blue is mostly dry. This is very thick and very bulky, and I should be ashamed of myself, but it's also visible on camera, so I'm not.
Good thinking.
I totally meant to do that.
Totally meant to do that, yeah.
When in doubt, you meant to do that. A big thing that I find when you're working on letters like this, or any art in general, even if you do something you didn't intend to do, if you then follow through and are consistent with it, it'll look like you meant to do it. So like these very thick lines, I'm not too thrilled by, but if I keep them throughout, it'll end up looking cool. And now what I'm going to do, I'm making a circle and a flick. Circle and flick. And these end up being leaves on the vine. Circle, flick. Circle, flick. And I keep coming back to my white. This is turning into a white work class, even though it's not supposed to.
Could you say the name again of the lady with the very long, many names, and where I might find her class? So I presume it's posted somewhere.
She has her class handout as a PDF. Whitework 101, I think, is the name of the PDF. And it should be in the Facebook group. It'll be either in SCA Scribes or it will be in SCA Scribes and Illumination. There are two main Scribal groups on Facebook, and I don't know why there are two, because there's a lot of overlap in membership, but there is. SCA Scribes is one, SCA Scribes and Illumination is another. And don't forget the Known World Aspiring Scribes Forum for beginners. That one is meant to be for people who have never done this before or are still learning, who want to be able to ask questions in a non-intimidating environment. And there are experienced scribes in there to act as mentors. Let's do, when in doubt, dots.
I've seen the whitework files in the aspiring scribes group.
Okay. I believe she's a mentor in there, so it's very possible that her handout is in there as well. That's here. Now the final step I'm not going to do tonight. You let this dry, and that's why I'm not doing it tonight. You go back and you outline the letter and the square in black ink, and it just makes it lift right off the page. It looks pretty cool when you do that.
Sorry, say that again?
Outline it in black or dark brown.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with leaving it like this, really, but if you look at the period exemplars, they generally didn't. And it ends up coming to life. It lifts it off the page, and also, since it's outlined in black, it kind of ties it to your black text, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. I didn't hear you because I went back to look at the Whitework 101 thing to make sure that was correct.
Getting ahead of yourself, not really getting ahead of yourself, actually.
I was like multitasking. So
I'm going to tease you because I can, but honestly, there's nothing wrong with expanding your knowledge at any point. And I'm somebody who will go, oh, that's interesting. Let me go Google it. And next thing I know, we're on a tangent a million miles away.
Yeah. I missed some of the beginning because I was trying to send out a memo to people on a work-related thing, not anything else.
I see.
Yeah. And then I realized I made a mistake, and then I had to redo it. And yeah.
So one thing I might do when this is done is find a Latin word that starts with D, like maybe Dominus, and collig it in here real nice underneath, and then gift this to someone as a trading card. It's done, right? I love doing the artist trading cards as an experimental medium because you can play with them If you don't like it, you can pitch it. If you do like it, you can keep it. You're not going to be out a great big sheet of paper. You're not going to be out, you know, a piece of purg or anything like that. And somebody last year started up a known world Scribble trading card program. I don't want to say competition. And there is a Facebook group for that. You finish your cards and you take a picture and you put it in the Facebook group. And then if anybody likes it, they can tell you, hey, I have that, and here I'd like to trade this one, and so on and so on. And people have been mailing and getting to know one another and sending cards back and forth all across the world. So that's fun. Let me see. The biggest question I got so far with them, I really like Carolingian because it's readable. Italic, not the slant italic, but like humanist, is basically the Italian descendant of Carolingian. It's, again, very readable, so you can use that. Your typical Gothic quadratas, the nice picket fence letters, look really good with the round sort of to offset it. So that's always a nice combination. Honestly, I've seen batards with Lombardic capitals as well. You can mix and match with these pretty much through period. I wouldn't go too far early, but later period works just fine for all of these. We're at only about 10 till 8. So we're finishing a little early. Like I said, I wasn't sure if this class was going to have a whole lot of meat on its bones. Do we have any other questions that people would like?
Could you tell me again the name of that special white
Oh, yeah.
paint? Because I didn't have a chance to write that down.
I have it on the class handout. It's
Okay.
It's Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. And honestly, if you're not sure, you can go to the John Neal website and they have a search bar and you can put Bleed Proof White in and it'll come up. It's a little jar. It's about that big, maybe that big. And it's like $15 for the jar, but it will last you about 15 years. I mean, it is thick. It's not going to pour out.
Do you use it straight out of the jar, or do you water it down?
I water it down very slightly. Just because if it's too dry, you can't paint with it. It's quite dry. It's almost like paint concentrate. You do definitely need to thin it before you can work with it. But if you thin it too far, then it becomes translucent. So play with that a little bit, experiment until you get it. You know, worst case, it looks translucent like this stuff up here. Best case, it looks nice and opaque like this stuff down here.
Do you also get your artist trading cards from the same place?
John Neal doesn't have artist trading cards, which surprises me. But it might be because they carry a lot of specialty items, and you can find artist trading cards almost anywhere. Michaels carries them. Online, you can go to Dick Blick. You can go to Jerry's Artorama.
Amazon?
Where else have I gone? What's that?
Amazon?
Probably.
Yeah, I've gotten it from them.
I wonder if they have them at Artist Craftsman and Artist Supply.
I am not familiar with that source, but it's entirely possible.
What's
really great, so you can get good quality of these. Mine are Strathmore, which is the same brand that I get my Bristol board from, but there are several different brands of artist trading card. And there are also, for fun and giggles, black ones. And the black cards are a lot of fun. But if you were here for class last week, you already know that. But
and they come in a lot of different paper types. So you can get cold press, hot press, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you can get watercolor ones. You can get, I prefer the Bristol just because they're easy and cheap. A pack of 20 is like $1.50. So I buy a few packs at a time. Now the black ones are a pack of 10, not 20, and they cost more. Because I guess, but they're still a really good thing to get. If you haven't done it yet, go ahead and join Known World Scribal Trading Cards on Facebook. There's a lot of fun ones, and you can show off your own work and trade with people around the country, around the world, really.
I have a question about the alphabet, because the L is such a crazy L, like your card that says love.
Yes.
That's a unique L that you don't see anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
The Y looks in that alphabet looks very modern. The W looks like it comes from another alphabet, because when I did it, I dug it out. I was trying to find the exemplar because I have questions. Are you able to see this?
I can. Oh, that's pretty. Very nice. Baronial champion, most worthy. Very cool.
It drove me crazy though, because some things have serifs, some things do not. They don't seem to come from different or from one known alphabet. Some have serifs, some do not, and some are very fat and looking very insular.
Mm-hmm.
And the Y on the worthy, because I had taken it from an exemplar.
I see what it is.
Straight up modern Y. So
yeah.
anyway, I had to kind of sometimes make up some letters using exemplars, but even the ones that are just gold pen on a red background follow this exact same pattern, and it seems to make its own alphabet.
It kind of does.
Because from different centuries, different books I referenced, they all have the funny L that looks like a big old rectangle with a leg on it.
Yep.
And the W's are fat, and they join at the top with a little bar at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all the
now
same.
This particular alphabet that I have here, I was looking for a really good example of the Lombardic alphabet, and the one that kept popping up again and again and again was the gouache font. This is a typeface from the early 1900s. So this is based off period, but is not period itself. And it bugs me. Your best bet is going to be looking for the letter shapes in your manuscripts themselves. And
they're consistent from century to century. They all have that rectangular L with the leg on it. And then it gets put with a different, it doesn't get used in anything other than a decorative capacity. You don't see those letters elsewhere.
Correct. You do see them as stone carvings. But again, it's an inscription. It's not a text that we're just reading for the fun of it. It's, big and bold. Here is the statue of King somebody, somebody, somebody. It's important text. Lombardic is for your important stuff. It's not for your everyday. Definitely. I'm fond of anything that fills a square. This P here looks incomplete. It's like it needs to have one of these on it, and then I'll be content. The L very often comes all the way out, or actually out here. They sort of line up. This may here. I like to put dots on the end because that way you don't have to worry about making a perfect smooth stroke. You come up here and you just sort of curl it around back on itself, and you don't have to worry about it coming to a clean point. Same thing with this E. This looks nice. This is easier. The F is a weird one. The letter Y. Now the letter W, when it first came into use in calligraphy in period, was actually a double U. So you actually had two uprights. There was an upright here, and there was an upright here. And there was a small gap between this U and this U in here. But yeah, for the most part, be guided by your exemplar. Find your period source that you want to be inspired by. Find what century you're after. Browse that. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books online now that have been digitized. Now you're going to find a lot of letter D for Dominus. You're going to find a lot of G for Gloria, because a lot of these texts were sacred texts. Other letters can be harder to find, but if you go hunting for them, they're out there.
There's
But they
freaky
do.
little things, like the side of the H is straight on the
Mhm.
left, but on the other side it has a little foot, a little 45-degree foot consistently, because I did pour over everyone I could find. And yeah.
And here's another one that you can come out. Just remember that there's a square here and that you're trying to fill it. And that will help. You know, this L here, if you stop over here, you haven't filled your square all the way. You want to come all the way out, right? Your P, it's the same thing. You want to fill your square. And the rectangle, square, close enough. It's a nice broad rectangle. You don't want them to be too scrawny. You want them to be robust. You want them to fill the space. This thin thing here, that's lovely for, you know, the 20th century, but let's fill that in. I come out like this, and we filled our square. T, this is one way to do a T, and I've seen them exaggerated and come almost all the way down. Another way to do the T is like this. And that's the round, that's the more uncial, Roman versus uncial, like I've mentioned before. There are multiple forms of the letter A. There are multiple D's. There are a couple different I's. There are a couple different T's. W changes depending on what time period you're looking at. N, there are a couple different N's. You have a Roman M here. And of course, the round one that I showed you earlier, that's hideous. But that's a more uncial M. There we go. Roman and uncial. Play around, fit the aesthetic. Don't be afraid to experiment, but also look for period examples to inspire you. And these are so much fun to put in your text. I've done scrolls where I started every sentence with a tiny little Lombardic capital. I started the paragraphs with bigger ones, and I started the entire text with one even bigger still. There was one scroll I did that had no border and no illumination except for two capitals. There was the proclaim to all at the start of the text. It was a great big letter P. And then you have the award text. And then at the bottom, the next sentence, done by our hands, you know, the one that you finish your scroll with, was another Lombardic capital. And then I stretched the edges out and put a couple leaves on them, and that was it. That was the entire illustration for that scroll. And it was surprisingly dramatic. I really didn't expect it to have as much impact as it did, but it looked great. So, you know, don't be afraid to do just letters. If you have really cool letters, people will appreciate them, and Lombardics are really cool letters.
They really are.
Do we have any other questions tonight?
Hi, this may be a newbie question, but since I'm a newbie, I guess it's fitting.
That's allowed.
Thank you. Are there certain letters that we should avoid because scrolls won't necessarily start with that letter? Or are there certain ones that are go-to letters?
You're looking at like charters and blanks, right? Where you're doing the illumination first and then somebody else is going to fill in the text.
Yes.
Yeah, it depends on your kingdom, and it depends on if you have standard award text. Where are you from?
Mid-realm.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have a lot of standard. We have standard text, but we don't rely on them. Like the West Kingdom, there's one text per scroll. Thou shalt use that text. So you know what your capital letter is going to be because it's always going to be that. We do have standard ones, but we also allow plenty of room for customization. P is good for proclaim to all. L, let all know. Do you hear and tell others? You can use a D if you wanted. I mean, L and P are pretty easy to come by. But talk to your local signet or your regional signet. see what they need in terms of blanks. If you don't have it already, there is a Middle Kingdom Scribe's Handbook. And the Scribe Handbook has standard texts and also standard openings for people who want to customize their text. Now, I mean, I probably wouldn't start my scroll with the letter Z because I'm not quite sure what I would say with the letter Z. Letter X might be a little tricky. I'm a big fan of M, may it be known to all that we so-and-so, right? I'm a big fan of proclaim to all. I'm a big fan of let all know. So L, P, and M, pretty easy go-tos. Your scribes will be able to look at that and go, ah, I know how I'm going to start my scroll.
Q is a hard one.
That would be.
Somebody turned in a blank with the letter Q because I don't think they actually knew what it was. It was a fancy Celtic thing. And so the person doing the calligraphy finally goes, and she goes, all right, question not these words of their majesties. And she went on from there.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you got to get creative. But yeah, if you do the illumination before you do the text, keep your scribe in mind, keep your calligrapher in mind, and think of what the wording might be, and then paint accordingly, if that makes sense. Thank you for coming. If you've come to one or more of my classes, thanks for coming back, because that's just thrilling. Thanks the RUM staff for putting all this together and making it possible for me to put these classes on. And y'all have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Okay.